Thank you, Mark, for having me. The chances are next to none. No one will move an inch if we are speaking of the effective international community, someone who can actually do anything about it, meaning the United States or the United Kingdom or France, as the three Western permanent members of the UN Security Council, or even the European Union or Germany. No one will move a toe in order to prevent Israel's blatant and ongoing aggression and unwarranted aggression against Syria. And on the other hand, countries like Russia and China, even though they deplore and they condemn sometimes and they express their concern about the situation and about Israel's activities, they are not going really to do anything to stop the Israelis and their expansionist policies. Unfortunately, it seems that Israel is taking advantage of the humongous vacuum that the fall of the Assad regime and the Syrian state and the Syrian military has left inside Syria. And this huge vacuum is allowing them to basically dismantle the Syria's military infrastructure with the sole purpose, in my view, of denying Syria the ability to militarize itself once more. Meaning that if this new government, for example, decides to reconstitute or reestablish the armed forces and call the former officers and soldiers to service, they will not be able to maintain a coherent military force due to the destruction of the military infrastructure. And of course, this also serves Israel's expansionist actions inside Syria, as now they are marching into Syrian territories unresisted and without any significant resistance, and they are still undertaking their land grab over there in complete violation of international law.
And of course, Jordan hosting the Arab Ministerial Conference and putting forward key recommendations and demands. Chief among them was safeguarding Syrian sovereignty and also a political transition in line with UN Resolution 2254. What's your assessment?
Yeah, my assessment is, of course, the first one, the first point that you mentioned out of the about 15 or 20 recommendations and demands made by the Arab Ministerial Summit's final statement or press release. What they said regarding state sovereignty, it relates to the previous question, meaning that they are telling the Israelis that they will not accept any or they will not recognize any of the land grabs Israel is undertaking at the moment. And the same message is even directed to, for example, a country like Turkey, who attended today's conference, especially that there are suspicions that Turkey might have territorial ambitions inside northern Syria. And of course, all the talk of partition and maybe potential Kurdish statehood or Druze autonomy and all of these ideas floating around, the Arab countries are making it clear that they support a united, unitary Syria under one national government with its territorial integrity safeguarded. That's the first point. The second point, and that is they're stressing that the necessity of a political transition. And I think this is a direct message to the current caretaker government dominated and controlled by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, telling them that you need to be more inclusive and that you need to embrace all segments and political forces and social forces and religions and sects and ethnic groups of Syria, especially that the entire caretaker government is dominated by members of HTS, and they are creating a constituent assembly right now in order to amend the constitution without consulting anyone at this moment. And of course, we know that this movement and its allies are of the jihadi Islamist inclination. They are fundamentalist Islamists. So if they decide to move forward with implementing their vision of Syria's political future unilaterally, we might find another Taliban-style state in our hand in the Levant. So I think this is very important. This is something that causes great concern to the Arab countries and most of the international community, to be honest, including Western countries. So that's why they are stressing that the political transition needs to be undertaken within the premise of Resolution 2254 of the Security Council.
Concern indeed. Let's move on to the worsening humanitarian crisis. According to reports, 70% of Syrian children are in distress in some way. What is the role of international organizations like the Red Cross? What role can they play in this situation?
Of course, they are already undertaking a very important role that needs to be expanded and reinforced. Not only the Red Cross, all of the humanitarian NGOs and UN agencies as well need to step in and need to be supported full-heartedly by anyone, by all countries that are capable of providing financial assistance. And the new Syrian government and all the Syrian political forces and the armed factions need to facilitate the work of these humanitarian organizations because, as you know, 13 million people have been displaced in Syria. 7 million of them are displaced abroad as refugees, some of them living in abysmal conditions in some countries in refugee camps, for example, like in Lebanon and other countries. And there are over 7 million people displaced inside. In the last round of fighting from the 27th of November until December 8th, 1.1 million people were displaced from their homes within a span of 10 days or 11 days. So this shows you the gravity of the humanitarian situation, which is compounded by the destruction of over 50% of Syria's infrastructure and the absence of the state right now and the state institutions and the capable services of the state institutions due to the collapse of the state. And now the new government is struggling to provide these basic services, including food and nutrition. Russia has halted its grain supplies to Syria on account of political instability and the fall of the Assad regime, and no one has stepped in yet in order to compensate the absence of the essential Russian grain shipments, and this is very dangerous on the food security of the Syrian people. So I think all of these things need to be taken into account, and all the countries, whether the United States, Russia, Turkey, all the Arab countries, Iraq, Jordan, everyone needs to act very responsibly with regards to mitigating the humanitarian situation in Syria, because not only is it a moral obligation, it is a strategic decision in order to prevent future conflict and bloodshed that will definitely spill over and adversely affect the neighboring countries and the international community as well. As we have seen, when ISIS rose to power and took over half of Syria, we saw bombings, huge bombings in Manchester and in Brussels and in Paris and in Vienna and in the heart of Europe. Terrorism reached the heart of Europe because of the collapse of Syria. We do not want to see a repeat of that, let alone the countries neighboring to Syria.